Hello and welcome to the programme. It says the most rigid political positions seem to be moving.
After we've settled the independence question, if the answer to that question is that Scotland wants to stay in the United Kingdom.
And just a little earlier on this programme, the Scottish Secretary said the SNP needs to set out how an independent Scotland will look.
It's not just about us setting out what the alternative will be. I think the important thing is that there can be further devolution. That's a great step for us to be contemplating.
The former Labour Chancellor and MP for Edinburgh South West, Alistair Darling, just looking at this issue of more powers. If Scotland does say no to independence in the referendum, what additional powers do you think it might be appropriate to think about coming to Holyrood?
Is actually, are we staying in the United Kingdom or are we leaving?
Mr. Darling, if what you're seeking is clarity in the debate, then isn't it entirely reasonable that the voters go into this referendum debate knowing exactly what you are proposing? Because here today you're saying we could have more tax powers, they could be income tax powers. I mean, equally, if we have income tax powers, there's no point in having that if you want to be fiscally coherent, unless you have borrowing powers which allow you to offset any fall in income tax revenue.
You could, but I mean, look,
it is up for discussion.
Look, isn't the first
but are you saying all of that is up for discussion?
I don't think anybody would argue that the status quo, what we have at the moment, is satisfactory. You know, David Cameron, and actually a welcome step for the Conservatives, has said, look, he's moved from the position of being, you know, the traditional Tory position of being outrightly against any change to the fact there could well be change. But
Mr. Darling, it would seem that what you're proposing is a one-sided debate. I mean,
no,
why do we have to wait for the alternatives? This is going to be the most important vote in 300 years of Scottish history. What you're saying is, trust us and we will deliver. You're requiring this enormous leap of faith. Why, if you accept now the status quo is no longer an option, why not spell out clearly what the alternatives are so people can make an informed judgment about whether we stay within the United Kingdom or not? The fact that you're not raising the possibility of further powers, a concession that actually Labour in Scotland have been completely out of the game on this. You are so far behind the curve.
No,
why don't you seize the initiative and outline a coherent and positive case where people can make a judgment about whether what you're proposing is what they want or not? As you want, Scotland says no to independence. What kind of political leverage do you really imagine Scotland would have in going to Westminster and asking for more powers after a no vote in Scotland? It would have no leverage at all, would it?
I think it would. I think there is a consensus amongst all the political parties, and the settlement reached in 1998 has, you know, is not what we want at the moment. Of course, there's going to be a lot of debate as to what you devolve or what you don't, you know, and what the arrangements might be. And then, you know, the politicians have to get on with it and do what they need to do as quickly as they can.
There's Conservative parties on the right side of the argument, particularly on the Constitution, and we'll be putting forward a robust defence where I want to see Scotland going in the future. The best people to make decisions about what goes on in the area are people themselves. And I am proud to be a Conservative and unionist. I believe in the United Kingdom. I believe in a united party. We'll work very closely with the No campaign, if it's a No campaign or a Yes to Scotland and Britain, whatever it's called.
Scotland could be a beacon for progressives if it was to go independent. We know that it is the SNP who are the progressives. Alex Salmond won the election last year and he won it handsomely. Our starting point is always that sovereignty lies with the government in Westminster. Our enemies are Scots. That the problem with David Cameron, he is English. Here's the thing, we have a distinctive message for the people of Scotland. What do we want in the United Kingdom? We don't know what independence means. We absolutely do not know what independence means. The First Minister asserts both that it is this,
it's a bit clearer than
it's this huge and we'd be in the monetary union.
Tax and spending, it means membership of the European Union and membership of the United Nations. How would that do? Alec Johnson fettered together.
Parties with very different political views have a very common interest in continuing the Union. Yes. And I think that's part of the lesson that Scotland needs to learn, that people working together are the future for Scotland, and that's being part of the United Kingdom.
Rather than presenting a clear and positive agenda is what has to be on the Union.
Patricia and Alex. Patricia and Alex, first of all. Guys are not setting out in any detail what a no campaign would involve. If there's no vote, what further powers would there be and when? So there'll be no detail from Labour prior to the referendum? No. The referendum is some 2 years away. Independence, if it happens, is possibly some 4 years away after negotiations. Can you tell me what the tax rate would be in the United Kingdom in 4 years' time?
There is no way I can tell you what the tax rate will have to be in 4 years substantially.
Well, they said no fear, but Michael Gove said there would be no NHS in independent Scotland. And Lord Carmiley, a former Tory MP, said they would have to bomb Scottish airports to Scotland being taken over by terrorists. That's the kind of ridiculous arguments we're getting against independence.
We want to have a discussion about what the future of Scotland is going to be like. We have a clear idea what Scotland should be like, but we want to discuss that.
Tell us what it is.
But it is a reasonable point. There'll be a white paper in November next year saying that's what independence is. Where's the white paper that says that's what the future of the Union is under revised powers? There isn't going to be one. To the studio.
OK, Brian, thank you very much indeed for that.
Now, I'm saying quite clearly, fine, let's hear what it is. Give us the detail, give us the beef. You can't seriously expect the people of Scotland to go into this huge debate, this great debate, the biggest debate for 300 years about the future of our country, and have people say, look, we're thinking about giving you something else, but we're not going to tell you what it is. The people who live in Scotland are the best people to make decisions about their own future. Of that, there can be no doubt.
The pro-union campaign to say we will go into this referendum and we will not tell you what the additional powers will be and we'll wait until after you voted yes or no.
I think they're going to find it very difficult indeed to sustain this line for a whole 2 years. You saw in that interview there the difficulty, the fact that on the one hand they're trying to say we've got a positive vision for the future of Scotland, but they're not being able to lay out what the constitutional provisions might be that would underlay that vision in Patricia Ferguson's answers. You saw both Alistair Darling and Joanne Lamont struggling in BBC interviews with this question, and I think in truth the media will keep on pursuing, keep on harrying the Better Together campaign to come up with some idea. Now, I think the danger is that in their eagerness to ensure that there isn't a second question on devolution max on the ballot paper, about what they're going to offer if indeed Scotland says no. And I think in some way or another, even if the question is on the ballot paper, the question is going to have to be answered. Now, the difficulty they face, of course, is whether or not the three parties to the Better Together campaign can actually come to any agreement as to what Scotland's constitutional status should be within the United Kingdom. And I think that almost
do they have to, though, John? I mean,
well, they don't. They could be honest and admit that they don't necessarily agree. And one possible position is to say, well, look, we all agree that we will put what we have to say in our 2015 manifestos, but by the way, we're going to tell you now in advance of the referendum vote what's going to go in our 2015 manifestos, and then exactly what happens subsequently will be dependent. So
they need somebody to break ranks, and politically that's
true. And they will have to, I think, certainly have to indicate what is going to be, give some idea of what might happen and what would be the pathway towards making a decision in the event of a no vote.
The people who live in Scotland are the best people to make decisions about their own future. Of that, there can be no doubt. So this is the time, our time, Scotland's time. So get involved.